I still hear Tyler's voice booming over that crystal microphone at the Dallas Petroleum Club Gala. My wife Harper's finally retiring from playing accountant. Lord knows she's been freeloading off my success long enough. The room of Stetson-wearing investors roared. 200 faces I didn't recognize, all laughing at my daughter like she was the punchline to some crude joke I'd walked in on halfway through. Harper turned ghost white beside me. Her champagne flute trembled in her hand, catching the light from those ridiculous chandeliers that probably cost more than my first house. I felt the old teacher rage boil up. That specific fury I used to reserve for school board meetings when they tried cutting arts programs. Because if these good old boys in their custom boots and $10,000 watches only knew the truth, they'd be kissing Harper's feet instead of chuckling into their bourbon. My daughter saved Tyler's freight empire 3 times over. 3 times. I watched her do it from my kitchen table, surrounded by spreadsheets and cold coffee at 2 a.m, untangling his messes while he slept like a baby upstairs. But that night at the gala, standing under those lights with everyone staring, she looked exactly like she did at 8 years old when the kids at school made fun of her thrift store shoes. Small, trying to disappear. Tyler kept going. He always did. And honestly, between you and me, gentlemen, I think it's time we both moved on to bigger things. The company's got a buyer, I'm about to be free, and life's too short to keep carrying dead weight. Dead weight. He said it with a smile. With his arm around some 25-year-old assistant, whose name I later learned was Madison. I watched Harper's face crumble. Not dramatically. Not like in the movies. Just this quiet devastation that mothers recognize instantly, the kind that happens when someone you loved reveals they never saw you at all. The worst part? Tyler's parents, Richard and Nancy Bennett, stood 10 feet away near the ice sculpture, nodding along like proud peacocks. Nancy even raised her glass. I'd known the Bennetts were toxic since Harper brought Tyler home 7 years ago, but I thought I could handle it. I thought love would smooth the edges. I thought my daughter's brilliance would speak for itself. I was wrong on all 3 counts. Let me paint you the full picture before we get to the part where their entire world imploded like a controlled demolition, because you need to understand exactly what kind of people we were dealing with. Harper met Tyler at a charity auction in 2017. She was 28, fresh off a brutal breakup, working 60-hour weeks at a forensic accounting firm. He was 35. VP of Bennett Logistics, charming in that specific way certain men are when they need something. What he needed was someone to save his sinking ship. The company his grandfather built was hemorrhaging money from bad contracts and worse management. Tyler's solution? Marry the smartest woman in the room and pretend her ideas were his. I saw it happening. Mothers always do. But Harper looked happy for the first time since her father died when she was 12, so I kept my mouth shut and smiled at their courthouse wedding. Big mistake. The Bennetts treated us like dirt from day one. Not openly at first. They were too polished for that. It was subtle. The way Nancy would touch Harper's clothes and say things like, "Oh, how practical." The way Richard would ask me about my little teaching career, with air quotes you could practically hear. When they found out Harper grew up in a 1,500-square-foot ranch house with hand-me-down furniture, Nancy actually said, "Well, she certainly landed on her feet, didn't she?" Translation: gold digger. They thought my daughter was a gold digger. The irony would be funny if it didn't make me want to flip tables. Because Harper paid for everything. The renovations on their house, Tyler's car, his parents' anniversary cruise, that gala we were standing in, watching my daughter get publicly humiliated. Harper had saved enough money to sponsor 3 tables. But according to the Bennett family narrative, she was the dependent one, the charity case, the widow's daughter who got lucky. Tyler loved that story. He told it at every family dinner, every company event. My wife's brilliant with numbers, probably because she had to be, growing up the way she did. Growing up the way she did. Like I hadn't worked 2 jobs to keep Harper in honors classes and college prep. Like poverty was some kind of moral failing instead of life kicking you when you're already down. I bit my tongue for 7 years. I smiled through Thanksgiving dinners, where Nancy served store-bought pie and complained about people who take advantage. I stayed quiet when Richard lectured Harper about fiscal responsibility, while she literally balanced his retirement portfolio for free. I did it because Harper asked me to, because she kept saying it would get better, because she loved him. But standing there at that gala, watching my daughter's face as Tyler announced their divorce to a room full of strangers like it was a stock update, something in me snapped clean in half. This wasn't going to get better. This was never going to get better, and I was done pretending otherwise. What I didn't know yet, what none of us knew, was that Tyler wasn't just cruel, he was criminal. And he'd been setting Harper up to take the fall for months. The betrayal ran deeper than public humiliation, deeper than a cheating husband and toxic in-laws. It ran all the way down to offshore accounts, forged documents, and a conspiracy that would eventually involve the FBI. But I'm getting ahead of myself. First, you need to know exactly what happened after that microphone cut out and the applause died down. Because that's when the real knife came out. Let me introduce myself proper. Jean Hargrove, 62 years old, retired history teacher from suburban Dallas. Widowed at 38, when my high school sweetheart died hauling freight on Interstate 35. One truck, one icy bridge, one phone call that split my life into before and after. I raised Harper alone after that. 20 years teaching AP history at Plano East, grading papers at midnight, chaperoning field trips on weekends. I drilled into those kids that real power isn't inherited. It's fought for. It's earned through grit and late nights, and refusing to quit when the world tells you you're not enough. Harper learned that lesson better than anyone. She graduated summa cum laude from SMU, got recruited by one of the top forensic accounting firms in Dallas. 26 years old, and already untangling million-dollar fraud cases for corporate clients. She was brilliant, is brilliant, but she had this blind spot when it came to love. Tyler Bennett walked into her life at exactly the wrong moment, or maybe the right moment depending on how you look at it. She just ended a relationship with a guy who couldn't handle her success. She was vulnerable, lonely, looking for someone who'd appreciate what she brought to the table. Tyler saw an opportunity. They met at a charity auction in 2017. He was vice president of Bennett Logistics, third generation in a freight company his grandfather built from nothing back in the 60s. On paper, Tyler had everything. Good looks, family money, that effortless confidence men get when they've never had to prove themselves. In reality, he was drowning. The company was hemorrhaging cash from bad contracts and worse decisions. His father Richard had started drinking away the stress. His mother Nancy spent money like it grew on their property, along with the live oaks. Tyler needed saving, and my daughter looked like salvation in a pencil skirt. They got married 6 months later at the courthouse. Small ceremony, just family. I should have seen the red flags then. Nancy spent the entire reception talking about Tyler's ex-girlfriend, some debutante from Highland Park who understood their world. Their world. Like money was a country we couldn't get a visa for. But Harper seemed happy. She laughed at Tyler's jokes. She believed him when he said his family would come around. She thought love could bridge the gap between her 1,500-square-foot childhood home and the Bennett estate with its circular driveway and imported fountain. I wanted to believe it too. The first time Nancy really showed her teeth was at the county fair that summer. We were all standing in line for brisket sandwiches. Someone asked me about retirement, and I mentioned my teacher pension. Nancy's face did this thing. This little twist of disgust she probably thought was subtle. A teacher pension. How quaint. I suppose every little bit helps when you're on a fixed income. Every little bit helps. Like I was some charity case they'd taken on. Like the pension I'd earned through 30 years of molding young minds was something to be pitied. Richard just chuckled and changed the subject. Tyler said nothing. Harper squeezed my hand under the table, but she didn't defend me. That silence, God, I regret not breaking it more than Texas regrets August. I should have stood up right there. Should have told Nancy exactly where she could shove her condescension. Should have grabbed Harper and walked away from the whole toxic mess before it got its hooks in deeper. But I didn't. I smiled. I thanked them for the lunch. I played the role they'd assigned me because Harper asked me to. Just give them time, Mom, she'd say. They're adjusting. It's hard for them, watching Tyler settle down with someone they didn't expect. Someone they didn't expect. That was Harper's polite way of saying someone from the wrong side of the tracks. Someone whose mother wore Kohl's instead of Neiman Marcus. Someone who knew the price of groceries and what it meant to check your bank balance before filling up your gas tank. The Bennetts treated us like we'd won some lottery we didn't deserve. Like Harper marrying Tyler was the best thing that could have happened to us instead of the other way around. Here's what they didn't know. What they never bothered to learn because they were too busy looking down their noses. Harper saved Bennett logistics. Not once. 3 separate times in 7 years. The first time was 8 months into the marriage. Tyler came home panicked about a Department of Transportation audit, fines that could have bankrupted them. Harper spent 6 weeks reconstructing their records, found the discrepancies, negotiated a settlement. She did it for free because family doesn't charge family. The second time was 2 years later. Bad investments in a shipping route that went belly up. Harper restructured their debt, renegotiated contracts, pulled them back from the edge. Again, no payment. Just Tyler taking credit at the company Christmas party. The third time was last year. I don't even know all the details because Harper stopped telling me. She'd just show up at my house at midnight with spreadsheets and cold coffee, looking exhausted. Tyler needs help with something, she'd say. Every single time, the Bennetts acted like she was lucky to be involved. Like she should be grateful they let her peek behind the curtain of their precious family business. The truth? Bennett Logistics would have folded years ago without my daughter propping it up. But at that gala, standing there while Tyler announced their divorce to a room full of strangers, I realized something worse. The Bennetts didn't just underestimate Harper. They genuinely believed their own story. They actually thought Tyler was the successful one, that Harper was dead weight. The delusion was complete. I watched my daughter walk out of that ballroom with her head high, mascara starting to run but refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. I followed her to the parking garage where she finally let herself cry against her steering wheel. "I can't do this anymore, Mom," she whispered. "I can't keep pretending it's going to get better." I held her while she sobbed, and I made a decision right there under those fluorescent lights with the smell of concrete and car exhaust. I was done being quiet, done playing nice with people who treated us like trash. The Bennetts wanted war? Fine. They just didn't know who they were fighting yet. A retired history teacher with nothing left to lose and everything to protect. That's the most dangerous kind of enemy. Every Sunday at Prestonwood Baptist, Nancy Bennett put on the performance of her life. She'd spot Harper walking in and rush over with open arms, pulling her into one of those long, swaying hugs that looked perfect from 10 feet away. The church photographer would snap the moment. Nancy's eyes would be closed, her face the picture of maternal affection. You could practically hear the caption, "Blessed to have such a loving family." Then she'd lean in close to Harper's ear and whisper something that would make my daughter's smile freeze solid. "You know your mother's holding you back with those low-class ways of hers, sweetheart. Tyler's family has standards." I'd watch it happen from 3 pews back. Watch Harper's shoulders tense. Watch her nod and force that smile wider like nothing had landed. Week after week, month after month, Sunday after Sunday of poisoned embraces and camera-ready cruelty. Tyler learned from the best, started parroting his mother's lines with his own special twist. He'd come home from the office and find Harper working on some forensic analysis for his company, spreadsheets covering their entire dining room table. "Still playing with your cute hobby math?" He'd say, kissing the top of her head like she was a child with a coloring book. "That's adorable, babe." "Really?" Cute hobby math. That's what he called the work that kept his company solvent. The analysis that saved them hundreds of thousands in bad contracts. The forensic accounting that corporations paid Harper's firm $500 an hour to perform. He made it sound like she was balancing her checkbook for fun. I started noticing other things too. The way Tyler would steer conversations away whenever Harper talked about her work. The way Richard would change the subject if anyone asked about her credentials. The way Nancy would smile that tight smile and say, "Well, it's wonderful Harper has something to keep her busy." Keep her busy. Like she was doing crafts to pass the time. The worst part came one Sunday afternoon at their house. We were having lunch after church, and someone brought up my late husband. I can't even remember the context. Maybe discussing family history or something. Tyler jumped in with this story about trucking routes. Made it sound like my husband was some kind of hillbilly taking shortcuts through back roads. Called them redneck routes with this laugh that made my hands shake under the table. My husband drove legal, safe routes for 20 years. He died because some kid was texting on an icy bridge. There was nothing redneck about it, nothing funny about it. I felt my blood pressure spike harder than Dallas traffic at rush hour. My vision actually blurred at the edges. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, to defend the man who gave me the best years of my life. Harper grabbed my wrist under the table. Squeezed so hard I could feel her nails. Her eyes were pleading. "Don't. Please don't." So I swallowed it. Swallowed the rage and the grief and the sheer audacity of this privileged man mocking someone who'd worked himself to death, providing for his family. I excused myself to the bathroom and cried into a hand towel while my reflection stared back at me. When did you become such a coward, Jean? But every time I thought about confronting them, Harper would beg me not to rock the boat. She had her reasons. She always had reasons. "Mom, Tyler's under so much stress with the company. This isn't the right time." "Mom, his parents are old-fashioned. They don't mean it the way it sounds." "Mom, I'm handling it. Please just let me handle it." I let her handle it. I bit my tongue until I tasted blood. I smiled at Sunday lunches and company dinners and 4th of July barbecues where the Bennetts treated us like charity cases they'd generously taken in. 7 years of swallowing insults. 7 years of watching my brilliant daughter shrink herself smaller and smaller to fit into spaces they'd never actually make room for her. And then came that September night at the Dallas Petroleum Club Gala. I'd watched Tyler work the room all evening, shaking hands, slapping backs, playing the role of successful executive. Harper stood beside him in a dress she'd spent too much money on, trying to look like she belonged. I saw Madison before Harper did. Tyler's assistant, 25 years old with perfect highlights and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She kept touching his arm, laughing too loud at his jokes. But I didn't say anything. Because I'd learned not to rock the boat. Then Tyler took that microphone, tapped it twice, waited for the room to quiet down, 200 faces turning toward the stage where my daughter stood, not knowing what was coming. "I want to thank you all for being here tonight to celebrate Bennett Logistics," he started. Standard stuff, corporate gratitude. Then his tone shifted. Got this casual, conversational quality that made my stomach drop. "My wife Harper's finally retiring from playing accountant. Lord knows she's been freeloading off my success long enough." The room erupted in laughter. Men in expensive suits chuckling into their bourbon. Women hiding smiles behind champagne flutes. Harper's face went white, not pale, white, like every drop of blood had drained straight to her feet. Tyler kept going. He was on a roll now, feeding off the crowd's energy. And honestly, between you and me, gentlemen, I think it's time we both moved on to bigger things. He had his arm around Madison by then, making it crystal clear what bigger things meant. "The company's got a buyer. I'm about to be free, and life's too short to keep carrying dead weight." Dead weight. He said it with a smile, said it like he was announcing quarterly earnings instead of destroying his wife in front of everyone she'd helped him impress. That's when the boat I'd been so carefully not rocking capsized completely. Not because I did anything, because Tyler had just blown a hole in it himself. And I was done swimming in circles trying to keep everyone else afloat. 11:47 at night. I was sitting in my Silverado outside the Whataburger on Preston Road with Harper in the passenger seat, watching her cry so hard she couldn't catch her breath. We'd driven around for 2 hours after leaving that gala, just driving. Harper couldn't go home. Couldn't face that empty house where Tyler was probably already packing her things. So we ended up here. Under the orange glow of fast food signs, with the smell of French fries drifting through my cracked window. Harper had finally stopped shaking. Her mascara was everywhere. Her expensive dress looked wrinkled and sad in the dashboard light. She turned to me with red, swollen eyes, opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. "Mom, I'm pregnant." Everything stopped. The traffic noise, the hum of the refrigeration units, my own heartbeat. Everything went silent, except those 3 words echoing in my head. I'm pregnant. My heart stopped faster than a longhorn stampede, just completely seized up in my chest while my brain tried to process what this meant. Harper was pregnant. With Tyler's baby. Tyler, who just announced their divorce on stage like he was reading off quarterly earnings. Tyler, who had his arm around another woman while his wife stood there dying inside. "How far along?" I managed to whisper. 8 weeks. I found out last Tuesday. Her voice cracked. I was going to tell him at the gala. I thought maybe it would change things. Make him remember why we got married. I pulled her into my arms, let her sob into my shoulder while rage built in my chest like a pressure cooker about to blow. That's when my phone buzzed. Text message. I almost ignored it. But something made me look. Lucas Morrison, one of my old students from Plano East. Smart kid, went into private investigation after college. We'd stayed in touch over the years. Christmas cards, the occasional lunch. I hadn't talked to him in 6 months. Why was he texting at midnight? I opened the message, had to read it 3 times before the words made sense. "Jean, I've been working a case that involves Tyler Bennett. You need to call me. Now. It's about Harper." My hands went numb. I pulled back from Harper, showed her the screen. Her face went from confused to terrified in half a second. I called him, put it on speaker. He answered on the first ring. "Lucas, what's going on?" "Mrs. Hargrove." His voice was tight. "Professional. I've been hired to investigate financial irregularities at Bennett Logistics. I can't tell you who hired me, but you need to know what I found." The parking lot felt like it was tilting. Harper grabbed my hands so hard I thought she'd break bones. Lucas continued. "Tyler Bennett has been embezzling from his own company for the past 18 months. He's moved $1.8 million into offshore accounts. But here's the thing." He paused. I could hear papers rustling. "The accounts are all under Harper's maiden name, Harper Hargrove. Someone went to a lot of trouble to make it look like she's the one stealing." I actually laughed, not because it was funny, because it was so absurd my brain short-circuited. This bitter, hysterical laugh that made the drive-through girl look at us weird through the window. Harper wasn't laughing. She'd gone white again. That same bloodless color from the gala. "That's impossible," she whispered. "I never opened any offshore accounts. I wouldn't even know how to hide money like that. I'm a forensic accountant. I catch people who do this." "I know," Lucas said. "That's why I called." "Mrs. Hargrove, this is a frame job. Someone with access to Harper's personal information set this up. And my guess is, Tyler's planning to trigger an investigation right around the time this divorce goes through." The pieces clicked into place, the public humiliation at the gala, the announcement about selling the company, the divorce. Tyler wasn't just leaving Harper, he was setting her up to take the fall for his own crimes. "Can you prove it?" I asked. My voice sounded calm, steady, like I was asking about the weather instead of my daughter's entire life falling apart. "I'm working on it." "But Jean, if this goes to the authorities before I have solid proof Tyler set this up, Harper's going to be the one facing charges. Her name is on everything." Harper made a sound like she'd been punched. Covered her mouth with both hands. Lucas kept talking. The accounts were opened using her social security number. Her mother's maiden name as the security question. Signatures that looked damn close to hers. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. "How long do we have?" I asked. "I don't know. Could be days, could be weeks. But you need to be ready, and Harper needs a lawyer. A good one." We thanked Lucas and hung up. Sat there in that Silverado, with the engine ticking as it cooled down. The Whataburger sign buzzed overhead. Harper was crying again. But these were different tears. Not heartbreak. Terror. "Mom, I'm going to lose everything. The baby. My career. My freedom. He's going to put me in prison for something I didn't do." I looked at my daughter. 35 years old, pregnant, and about to be framed for a crime by the man who'd promised to love her forever. That's when Mama Bear loaded the shotgun. Figuratively, of course. Texas women don't need actual guns when the truth hits harder than buckshot. "No," I said. My voice was cold. Steady. "He's not. Because we're going to prove what he did. We're going to take everything he tried to build on your back and burn it to the ground." Harper stared at me. "How?" I smiled. Not a nice smile. The smile I used to give students who thought they could cheat on my tests and get away with it. "Honey, I taught history for 30 years. I know exactly how empires fall. And the Bennett Empire is about to learn what happens when you mess with the wrong family." 3 days after Lucas's midnight phone call, Harper and I were standing at the State Fair of Texas. Big techs looming over everything like some kind of mechanical judgment day, that 55-foot cowboy grinning down at the chaos below. We weren't there for fun. We were there because Richard and Nancy Bennett had texted Harper demanding a family meeting. Neutral ground. Public place. Come alone or face consequences. Harper wanted to ignore them. I told her we should go. Let them show their cards. See what they knew. So there we were, October heat still clinging to the afternoon, surrounded by the smell of fried everything and the screams from the Texas Star Ferris wheel. The Bennetts were waiting by the funnel cake stand, Richard in his golf shirt and khakis, Nancy in her country club best, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. They spotted us and walked over. No greeting, no pleasantries. Nancy got straight to business. "We need to talk about this ridiculous divorce drama you're causing," she said, loud enough that people nearby started glancing over. Harper's hand found mine, squeezed. I could feel her shaking. "I'm not causing anything," Harper said quietly. Tyler announced the divorce. At the gala. In front of everyone. Richard waved his hand like he was swatting a fly. Tyler was under stress. You pushed him to that. Always demanding his attention. Always interfering with company business. I felt my jaw clench. But I stayed quiet. Let Harper handle it. "I saved the company," Harper said. Her voice was stronger now. 3 times. You both know that. Nancy laughed, actually laughed, this sharp, cruel sound that cut through the carnival noise. Saved the company. Listen to yourself. You ran some numbers, dear. Tyler did the real work. You've been playing office while living off his success. That's when she leaned in closer. Close enough that I could smell her expensive perfume. Close enough that her next words were clearly meant to wound. You trapped our golden boy with your trailer park tactics. Got pregnant on purpose, didn't you? Thought you could lock him down forever with a baby. Everything went red. Not figuratively. Literally red. My vision tunneled. Blood rushed in my ears. I felt decades of swallowed pride explode all at once. Every insult I'd ignored, every snide comment I'd let slide, every time I'd smiled and nodded while they treated my daughter like garbage. All of it came roaring up from somewhere deep in my chest. I planted my boots on that concrete, pulled my hand from Harper's and stepped forward, looked Nancy Bennett dead in her condescending eyes. "Lady, your son couldn't balance a lemonade stand without my daughter." My voice came out loud. Clear. Carrying across the funnel cake stand, and probably halfway to the cotton bowl. Nancy's mouth fell open. Richard started to say something. I cut him off. "You want to talk about who's living off whose success? Let's talk about it." Bennett Logistics was bankrupt when Harper married Tyler. Bankrupt. She restructured your debt. Negotiated your contracts. Saved your retirement fund that you gambled away on bad shipping routes. People were definitely watching now. Phones were coming out. I didn't care. And you've spent 7 years treating her like she's lucky to breathe your air, like she's some kind of charity case you took pity on, when the truth is your entire lifestyle exists because my daughter worked for free. Nancy's face was turning purple. "How dare you speak to me like this? Do you have any idea who we are?" "Yeah," I said. "I know exactly who you are. You're the woman who whispers insults in church, who mocks a widow's pension, who let her son humiliate his pregnant wife in public because you raised him to think he's better than everyone else." Harper gasped behind me, "Mom." But I was on a roll now. 7 years of rage pouring out. "You want to call my daughter Trailer Park? Fine. Let me tell you what Trailer Park looks like. It looks like working 2 jobs to keep your kid in honors classes. It looks like choosing between groceries and the electric bill. It looks like teaching yourself to be strong because nobody's coming to save you." I stepped closer. Nancy actually backed up. "And you know what Trailer Park doesn't look like? It doesn't look like embezzling from your own company and framing your wife for it." Richard's face went white. Nancy's eyes widened. "Oh yeah," I said. We know about the offshore accounts, the fake signatures, the whole setup, and we've got proof." We didn't have proof yet. Lucas was still working on it. But they didn't need to know that. "You come near my daughter again, you threaten her, you so much as look at her wrong, and I will make it my life's mission to make sure everyone from here to Houston knows exactly what kind of people you really are." The crowd around us had grown, at least 20 people with phones out, recording every word. Nancy's perfect composure finally cracked. "You're a bitter old woman who can't stand that your daughter married up." "Married up?" I laughed. "Honey, my daughter married down so far she hit bedrock. The only thing Tyler Bennett has that's worth anything is the last name, and even that's about to be worthless when everyone finds out he's a thief and a fraud." Richard grabbed Nancy's arm, started pulling her away. "This isn't over," he hissed. "Yeah," I called after them, "it really is." They disappeared into the crowd. Harper and I stood there, both shaking. The onlookers slowly dispersed, probably already uploading videos to social media. Harper turned to me with tears streaming down her face. "Mom, you just declared war on them." "No," I said, pulling her into a hug. "They declared war 7 years ago. I just finally showed up to fight." What I didn't know was that video would be viral within 6 hours. Every Dallas mom group from Frisco to Mesquite would share it. The comments would be brutal. And the Bennetts would finally understand what it felt like to be publicly humiliated. But that was still coming. In that moment, I just held my daughter and felt, for the first time in years, like maybe I'd done something right. Back at my little Frisco ranch house that night, the same 1,500 square foot place I'd paid off teaching summer school for 20 years. 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and a kitchen where Harper had done homework at the table every night growing up. It felt smaller with Lucas Morrison sitting in my living room, spreading documents across my coffee table, like he was planning a military operation. Harper sat on the couch, still wearing her state fair clothes. I could see her hands shaking as she reached for her water glass. Lucas looked up at us with an expression I couldn't quite read. Not quite anger, not quite satisfaction. Something darker. "I need to show you something," he said. "And I need you both to stay calm when I do." My stomach dropped. Nothing good ever started with "stay calm." He pulled out a thick folder, opened it, started laying out bank statements, transfer records, emails. The paper kept coming, document after document. "Tyler didn't do this alone," Lucas said quietly. "His parents helped. Richard and Nancy Bennett are co-conspirators in the embezzlement." The room tilted. Harper made a sound like she'd been slapped. Lucas continued, pointing at highlighted sections. "They've been moving money for 18 months. Small amounts at first. 5,000 here, 10,000 there. Always under the reporting threshold. Always careful." "But that's not the worst part," he said. He pulled out another set of documents. These ones had the letterhead of Prestonwood Baptist Church. My blood went cold. They used the church mission trip fund as cover. Nancy runs the missions committee. She's been collecting donations for supposed trips to Guatemala and Honduras, legitimate donations from legitimate church members. He spread out more papers, bank transfers, receipts that didn't match, invoices for mission trips that never happened. They took that money and funneled it through Tyler's offshore accounts, made it look like charitable work while they were literally stealing from the church. I felt 30 years of classroom discipline snap clean in half. That control I'd maintained through countless parent meetings and school board fights just evaporated. "Those people," I whispered, "those sanctimonious Bible-quoting hypocrites were stealing from the church while judging us for being low class?" Harper was crying, not loud, just silent tears streaming down her face. "How much?" she asked. Lucas's jaw tightened. "Combined with Tyler's embezzlement from the company? About $2.3 million. And all of it is set up to look like you did it, Harper." That's when Harper's phone buzzed. She picked it up, looked at the screen. Her face went from pale to gray. "Mom," she whispered. She turned the phone so I could see. It was an email from Nancy Bennett's lawyer, with an attachment. Harper opened it with shaking hands. It was a will, Tyler's will, dated 6 months ago. I read it over her shoulder. The language was formal, legal, cold. But the message was crystal clear. Tyler had drafted a will, leaving everything to his parents. The house, his company shares, his retirement accounts, every single asset. Harper was mentioned exactly once. To my estranged wife Harper Hargrove Bennett, I leave nothing, as she has already taken enough. Estranged. 6 months ago, before the gala, before the public divorce announcement. He'd been planning this for half a year. But that wasn't the part that made my hands shake. It was the note attached to the email. From Nancy Bennett. "This will go into effect as soon as the divorce is final. You'll get nothing, dear. You should have stayed in your lane." Harper dropped the phone, started sobbing, real, ugly, desperate sobs that came from somewhere deep in her chest. "They planned it all," she choked out. "The whole time. Every family dinner. Every church service. Every time they smiled at me. They were planning to destroy me." I pulled her into my arms, let her cry, but my mind was racing. Lucas was still sitting there, watching us with that dark expression. "There's more," he said. "More?" My voice came out sharper than I meant it. What else could there possibly be? He pulled out one final document. This one had my name on it. "They opened accounts in your name too, Jean. Nothing as extensive as Harper's. But enough to make you look complicit, to make it seem like this was a family conspiracy. My name. My social security number. My mother's maiden name used as security questions. They'd framed both of us. Something changed in that moment. Some fundamental shift in how I saw the world. I'd spent my whole life believing in fairness, in justice, in the idea that good people were rewarded and bad people faced consequences. The Bennetts had just proven all of that was a lie. I stood up, walked to my bedroom, came back with my purse and my car keys. "Harper, baby," I said. My voice was calm, steady, like I was announcing a pop quiz instead of declaring war. "We're done playing nice Methodist ladies." She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. "What are we doing?" I turned to Lucas. "How many copies of this evidence do you have?" "Multiple copies. All secured. Some with my lawyer, some in a safe deposit box, some with a colleague who doesn't know what's in them." "Good," I said. "Print me everything. Every document, every email, every bank statement. I want it thick enough to hurt when I drop it on a table." Lucas started gathering papers. "What are you planning?" "We're going to the Bennett McMansion," I said, "right now, with evidence thicker than the yellow pages, and we're going to have a conversation about truth and consequences." Harper stood up, wiped her eyes. "Mom, they'll call the police." "Let them," I said. "We're not doing anything illegal. We're just visiting family, having a chat, maybe showing them what their lawyer's going to see when this all goes to court." I looked at my daughter, saw something change in her face, fear turning into something harder. "You're sure?" she asked. "Honey, I've never been more sure of anything in my life." Thanksgiving Day. The Bennett McMansion was decorated like something out of a magazine. Fall wreaths on every door. Pumpkins lining the driveway. That imported fountain running despite the November chill. Tyler had sent Harper a text that morning. "Short, cold, family dinner at 5. Don't make a scene." Don't make a scene. Like we were the problem. Like we were the ones who'd spent 18 months stealing and lying and setting up an elaborate frame job. Harper wanted to stay home. I told her we were going, not to make peace, to end this. Lucas had everything ready. Documents organized, timeline clear, evidence that would hold up in any court. More importantly, evidence that would destroy the Bennetts in the court of public opinion. We pulled up at 4:58. My Silverado looked out of place between Richard's Mercedes and Tyler's Lexus. I didn't care. I grabbed the folder from the back seat, 3 inches thick, every crime, every lie, every stolen dollar documented in black and white. I also grabbed my Whataburger cup, sweet tea, still cold. I'd stopped on the way because I knew I'd need something to hold, something normal to keep me grounded. Harper and I walked up to that front door. She rang the bell. Her hand was shaking. Nancy answered. She was wearing pearls and a sweater that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage used to be. Her smile was tight. Fake. "Well, you actually came. How unexpected." She didn't move to let us in, just stood there in the doorway like a bouncer at an exclusive club. "We were invited," I said. My voice was pleasant. Sweet, even. "Family dinner, right?" She stepped aside, reluctantly. We walked into that marble foyer with its cathedral ceiling and chandelier that belonged in a hotel lobby. The dining room was straight ahead. I could see Tyler already sitting at the head of the table. Madison beside him. His parents across from them. The table set for 6. But here's what I noticed immediately. Tyler's phone was propped up on a stand, camera pointing at the table, little red light blinking. He was live streaming, broadcasting his perfect Thanksgiving dinner to investors probably, or friends, or whoever still believed his carefully constructed lies. Perfect, better than perfect, exactly what we needed. Tyler looked up when we walked in. His face went through about 5 emotions in 2 seconds. Surprise, annoyance, calculation, then that fake smile he'd perfected. "Harper, Mrs. Hargrove, so glad you could make it." He gestured to the empty chairs. "Please, sit." I didn't sit. I walked straight to that table. Set my Whataburger cup down right in the middle of Nancy's fancy centerpiece. Place the folder next to it. "Before we eat," I said, "I think we should talk about something. Family honesty. Truth. The values y'all are always preaching about at Prestonwood Baptist." Richard cleared his throat. "Jean, perhaps this isn't the time." "Oh, it's exactly the time," I interrupted. I opened the folder, started spreading documents across the linen tablecloth. "Tyler, explain something to me. Why did $1.8 million vanish into Cayman accounts under Harper's maiden name?" The live stream camera kept recording. I could see the phone screen from where I stood. 23 people watching, then 30, then 50. Tyler's face went white. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Really?" I pulled out more papers. "Because I've got 18 months of transfers here. Small amounts, always under 10,000. Classic structuring to avoid reporting requirements. And look at this. The accounts use Harper's social security number. Her mother's maiden name. Her birthday." Harper stood beside me, silent, watching her husband squirm. Madison started to stand up. I pointed at her. "Sit down, honey. This concerns you too. You're sleeping with a felon." Nancy's face turned purple. "How dare you come into our home and make these accusations? You trashy, bitter—" "Careful," I said. "You're on camera. The whole world's watching." But Nancy was past careful, past controlling herself. 7 years of looking down on us came pouring out. "People like us don't mix with Hargrove trash," she spat. "You and your daughter with your Walmart clothes and your pathetic little teacher pension. You think you belong here? You think you're good enough for this family?" The room went silent. Even the ticking of the grandfather clock seemed to stop. The live stream view count jumped. 70 people, 90. Someone was sharing it. "Nancy," Richard hissed. But the damage was done. I smiled. Actually smiled. There it is. 7 years of fake smiles and church hugs. Now everyone knows what you really think. Tyler was frantically reaching for his phone, trying to end the stream. Harper grabbed it first, held it up higher, turned it so the camera caught Tyler's panicked face. Richard stood up, tried to salvage something, put on his good old boy voice, the Friday Night Lights speech about family and loyalty and Texas values. "Now, Jean, I know emotions are running high, but we're all family here. Let's just take a breath. Remember what's important. Unity, forgiveness, the Bennett name." That's when someone knocked on the door. Loud. Authoritative. The kind of knock that means business. We all froze, looked at each other. The knocking came again. Harder. "FBI. Open up." The color drained from every Bennett face simultaneously. Tyler looked at his parents. His parents looked at each other. Madison started crying. I walked to the foyer, opened that massive front door. 3 agents in windbreakers stood there with badges and very serious expressions. The lead agent looked past me into the dining room. "Tyler Bennett?" Tyler stood up slowly, hands shaking. "Yes? You're under arrest for wire fraud, embezzlement, and money laundering. You have the right to remain silent." The live stream was still going, still broadcasting. Harper held that phone steady while they read Tyler his rights, while they put handcuffs on him in his own dining room, while his perfect Thanksgiving dinner turned into a crime scene. Richard started yelling about lawyers. Nancy collapsed into her chair. Madison ran for the bathroom. And me? I picked up my sweet tea, took a long sip, watched it all unfold like a movie I'd been waiting my whole life to see. We left the Bennett house while the FBI was still processing the scene. Agents everywhere, cameras flashing, neighbors gathering on their manicured lawns to watch the show. Harper was quiet in the passenger seat. Too quiet. She hadn't said a word since they'd led Tyler out in handcuffs. Just sat there, staring at her hands. I was driving back toward my place when she made a sound. Small, pained, like something breaking inside. "Mom," she whispered. "Something's wrong." I looked over. She was doubled over, hands clutching her stomach, face twisted in pain. "What kind of wrong?" My hands tightened on the wheel. "I'm bleeding." Her voice cracked. "Mom, I'm bleeding." I didn't think, just acted, swerved across 2 lanes. Took the next exit, headed straight for Baylor Plano Medical Center. 5 minutes away. Felt like 5 hours. Harper was crying now, not loud, just these quiet, desperate tears. "No, no, no. Please no, not the baby, please." I was praying, actually praying for the first time since my husband died. "Please God, please, not this, she can't lose this too." I pulled up to the emergency entrance, left the truck running, ran inside screaming for help. They brought a wheelchair. Got Harper inside. Started asking questions I couldn't answer while trying to fill out forms with shaking hands. They took her back. Told me to wait. I stood there in that fluorescent-lit waiting room with its bad coffee and worse magazines, feeling completely helpless. An hour passed, maybe 2. I lost track of time, just sat there replaying everything. The gala, the state fair confrontation, Thanksgiving dinner, the FBI raid. All of it stress Harper didn't need. Stress I'd helped create by pushing the confrontation. By going to their house with evidence. By forcing the explosion, instead of letting it happen quietly. My phone buzzed. Text from Lucas. "Tyler's being processed downtown. Parents are under investigation. Church is demanding answers. It's all falling apart for them." I didn't feel victorious. I felt sick. Finally, a doctor came out. Young woman with tired eyes. She sat down beside me. That's when I knew. Doctors don't sit down to give you good news. "Mrs. Hargrove, I'm sorry. Your daughter lost the pregnancy. We did everything we could, but the stress, the trauma, it was too much." The words hit like physical blows. Lost the pregnancy. Too much stress. Everything we could. "Can I see her?" My voice didn't sound like mine. "Of course. She's asking for you." They led me back to a room that smelled like antiseptic and sadness. Harper was lying in a hospital bed, IV in her arm, looking smaller than I'd seen her since she was 8 years old. Her eyes found mine. And she just broke. Completely shattered. I climbed into that narrow hospital bed beside her, held my 35-year-old daughter like she was still my baby, let her sob into my shoulder while my own tears soaked into her hair. "I lost it," she kept saying. "Mom, I lost the baby. It's gone." "I know, baby. I know. I'm so sorry." We lay there for hours. Nurses came and went. Checked vitals. Adjusted medication. Left us alone with our grief. All I could think was I should have seen it sooner. Should have recognized what Tyler was from day one. Should have grabbed Harper and run the first time Nancy whispered poison in her ear at church. I'd spent 7 years trying to keep the peace, trying to be the good mother-in-law, trying not to interfere, and it had cost my daughter everything. Her marriage, her health, her baby, her sense of safety in the world. The guilt felt heavier than a Dallas summer, crushing, suffocating, making it hard to breathe. But somewhere under that guilt, something else was building, something primal, something that had been dormant for too long. Rage. Not the hot, explosive kind from the state fair, cold rage, calculated, the kind that plans, the kind that doesn't stop until justice is served. I thought about Tyler getting processed downtown, probably calling lawyers, probably spinning stories, probably still thinking he could talk his way out of this. I thought about Richard and Nancy, sitting in their McMansion, scrambling, panicking, realizing their retirement fund was tied to Tyler's schemes, that the FBI was looking at them too, that their church friends were already distancing themselves. I thought about every snide comment, every fake smile, every time they'd made Harper feel small. And I felt something shift inside me, some fundamental change in who Jean Hargrove was. No more nice teacher, no more turning the other cheek, no more giving people the benefit of the doubt when they'd shown me exactly who they were. Harper finally fell asleep around 3 in the morning, exhausted from crying, from loss, from 7 years of trying to be enough for people who would never value her. I stayed awake, holding her, planning. The Bennetts thought they'd won, thought framing Harper would let them walk away clean, thought their money and connections would protect them from consequences. They didn't understand what they'd unleashed. They'd hurt my daughter, cost her a baby, nearly destroyed her completely. And I was declaring war on every fake smile that had ever diminished us, every condescending comment, every moment they'd made us feel less than. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about justice, about making sure they could never hurt anyone else the way they'd hurt Harper. I kissed my daughter's forehead, smoothed her hair, made her a promise she couldn't hear. They took everything from you, baby. But I'm going to make sure they lose everything too. Not through violence, not through lies, through truth, through exposure, through every legal means available. The Bennetts had declared war on us 7 years ago. They just didn't know it until now. But they were about to find out what happens when you mess with a Texas mama who's got nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. 6 months later. Spring in Texas. The kind of morning where the air smells like fresh-cut grass and possibility. I'm sitting on the deck of our new cabin on Lake Louisville, watching the sun come up over the water. Harper's inside making coffee. I can hear her humming, actually humming, first time in years. Let me catch you up on what happened after that night in the hospital. After the FBI raid. After everything fell apart and came back together in ways none of us expected. First, the house that McMansion Harper and Tyler lived in. Turns out it was solely in Harper's name, not joint ownership, just hers. I'd forgotten about that. Wedding gift from me. Insisted the deed be in her name only. Just in case. Tyler had rolled his eyes. Said it didn't matter. Signed off on it because he was so confident nothing would ever go wrong. That loophole saved Harper. When the divorce went through, she kept the house. Tyler got nothing. All his assets were frozen pending criminal investigation. But Harper owned that property free and clear. She sold it within a month. Couldn't stand to live there anymore. Too many memories, too much pain. She walked away with enough money to start fresh. Tyler? Last I heard, he's looking at 7 to 10 years federal prison. Wire fraud. Money laundering. The works. Madison testified against him in exchange for immunity. Turns out she'd been keeping records. Smart girl. Terrible judgment in men, but smart. Richard and Nancy Bennett? That's where karma really showed its teeth. The church investigation was brutal. Thorough. Prestonwood Baptist doesn't mess around when it comes to financial impropriety. They brought in forensic accountants, audited every penny of the missions fund going back 5 years. Found exactly what Lucas had documented: donations for Guatemala trips that never happened, Honduras mission supplies that were never purchased. Hundreds of thousands of dollars funneled through fake charities into Tyler's offshore accounts. The Bennetts were exposed. Not just to law enforcement, to everyone, their church family, their country club friends, their entire social circle. Nancy had to resign from every committee she'd ever been on. Richard lost his position on the church board. Their retirement fund, which they'd tied to Tyler's schemes, was seized as proceeds of crime. They lost the McMansion. The cars, the lifestyle, everything they'd built on stolen money and other people's work. Last I heard, they're living in a 2-bedroom apartment in Mesquite, arguing over Swanson dinners. No more imported fountains, no more country club brunches. Just 2 bitter people facing the consequences of their own choices. I don't take joy in their suffering, but I don't lose sleep over it either. Harper filed for divorce 3 weeks after Thanksgiving. It was final by February. She kept the company shares I'd been holding for her. Another thing I'd insisted on years ago. Tyler had signed over 10% of his shares as a wedding gift, put them in my name to hold in trust for Harper. He'd forgotten about them, thought they were just symbolic, didn't realize they'd be worth something when the company finally sold. Harper sold her shares for 7 figures, walked away with enough money to never have to worry again. But here's what made me proudest. She didn't just take the money and disappear. She started a nonprofit, Women's Financial Literacy, teaching other women how to protect themselves, how to recognize financial abuse, how to build independence. She named it after her father, the Michael Hargrove Foundation. My late husband would have loved that. Me? I'm teaching again. Free history classes at the community center. No pay. Don't need it. Just doing it because I love it, because teaching was never about the money anyway. And I'm dating. Can you believe that? Robert Winchester. Silver Fox widower I met at church. Lost his wife 3 years ago to cancer. He's kind. Patient. Thinks my fire is beautiful instead of something to extinguish. We take it slow, no rush, just 2 people who've lived enough life to know what matters. Harper and I sold the Frisco house last month, the little ranch I'd raised her in, paid off with summer school money and late nights grading papers. It was time to let it go. We bought this cabin together, 2 bedrooms, open concept kitchen, deck overlooking the lake. It's smaller than the Frisco house, definitely smaller than the Bennett McMansion. But it's ours, really ours. No memories of Tyler, no ghosts of bad marriages or toxic in-laws, just clean slate and lake water. We sit out here most evenings, watch the sunset, talk about everything and nothing. Harper's healing, slowly. The miscarriage still hurts, probably always will, but she's finding peace with it. She told me last week she's glad it happened, not glad she lost the baby, but glad she's not tied to Tyler forever through a child, glad she gets to start completely fresh when she's ready. Sometimes we talk about the Bennetts. Not often, but sometimes, wonder if they've learned anything. If Nancy ever thinks about the poison she whispered, if Richard regrets enabling his son's cruelty. Probably not. People like that rarely do. But here's what I've learned. The sweetest revenge isn't destruction. It's not about making them suffer or getting even. The sweetest revenge is living so damn well they choke on their own poison. It's choosing happiness over bitterness, peace over anger, freedom over revenge. Tyler's in prison. His parents are broke. Their reputation is destroyed. And we didn't have to do anything except tell the truth and walk away. Harper's thriving. I'm happy. We're free. Jean Hargrove, 62 years old, retired history teacher, widow, mother, survivor. And finally, completely, gloriously free. Because Texas women don't get mad. We get even, then we get happy. And honey, happy looks damn good on us. If you've ever had to walk away from toxic people who tried to make you feel small, hit that subscribe button. This story's for you. For every woman who chose herself, who cut the cancer out of her life and learned to breathe again. We're not victims, we're warriors, and our scars, they're proof we survived.